Hey, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Andrew Freedman, senior climate reporter with Axios, another half of the Generate newsletter team. My next guest doesn't need much introduction. She's a leader in the U.S. energy sector. Please welcome Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm.
On music. I
know. It's not bad. So I'd like to start where I think a lot of energy geeks and climate folks' minds are at, which is data centers and AI. Last week brought the Microsoft and Constellation announcement regarding 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania. What did this announcement signal to you about data center power needs, and also the future of nuclear?
Both extremely positive, I'll say. I mean, data center power needs, we want these data centers to be built in the United States. We want them to make sure for AI purposes, for national security purposes, as well as for economic purposes, we want them to be located here. We know that it's going to require a huge amount of power demand. We also know that the hyperscalers are eager to bring their clean power with them. So, for example, this is why Microsoft did this deal. A lot of them are interested in small modular reactors. In fact, if you could cluster a number of them together, they could order a 12-pack, and that could take small modular reactors to scale. And that's the kind of thing, the conversation we're having. We know that there's been interest in enhanced geothermal. They all want clean baseload power. We know that there's been interested in renewables plus batteries. All of that is very positive. The expectation is that there will be 15% growth over the next few years in demand just from AI. Of course, we've got the demand pull from transportation, electrifying transportation, and all these factories that are coming online as well. But the good news is that we can do this. This year, in 2024, it is projected, these are based upon what developers have told us and that we are going to get on our grid, we will be adding 60 gigawatts of clean power on our grid this year. That's 30 Hoover dams worth of clean power on our electric grid this year. That's 19 Hoover dams worth just of solar, which is double what it was the year before. So there's a hockey stick happening right now as a result of the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law. It's become irresistible to develop these resources. So my point is that we know we can add clean power. We have modeled for this at the Department of Energy. And we know that nuclear is absolutely an important part of that clean power future. We just got to get some of these SMRs built.
And you see the demand. The demand is very near term, too. What steps are needed from your department or Congress or elsewhere in the government to make sure both our aging grid is capable of meeting the addition and load growth, as well as without turning to more carbon and methane intensive sources of fuel? See a lot of utilities that are kind of signaling that they might want to build some gas plants.
Yeah, I mean, we can do this with clean. That's my point. We are, 60 gigawatts is a huge amount of power in 1 year. I mean, we can do, and we're going to continue to see that trajectory, at least for the life of the Inflation Reduction Act. And hopefully we get extensions. With respect to the aging grid, you're probably aware, because I know you guys have been covering it, but the amount of money that has been invested because of either the bipartisan infrastructure law or the Inflation Reduction Act on the grid is about $75 billion, $35 billion coming from the Department of Energy alone. But that's not going to be enough. I mean, we are very interested in, for example, the amount of power that can be added or that would be unleashed if we reconductored the grid and added more power, twice the power on the same infrastructure, or used grid enhancing technologies. We have a liftoff report that says that up to 90 gigawatts could be added just from those kinds of efforts, where you don't have to get a whole bunch of new permitting, where you can get a categorical exclusion to be able to reconductor, et cetera. So we are continuing to do that. What needs to happen? I think there needs to be more of a sense in Congress that the grid is a piece of U.S. infrastructure like roads are. like the highway system is, and that we need to think about it because every year, I mean, there are large pieces that need to be replaced. It is old. It is subject now to all these extreme weather events. So we need more investment on a regular basis, not just a one-off grant basis. So I think Congress should think about that going forward.
Is there anything about the grid itself that keeps you up at night?
Yeah, going out for sure. I mean, I'm worried about cyber, right? I'm worried about nefarious actors on the grid. And I am worried about these extreme weather events, which continue to happen with such velocity, and that we aren't going to have enough. I worry about the wildfires. I worry about, every time New Orleans gets hit or Puerto Rico gets hit. So I just think we have to think about things in the context of extreme weather events and build in a way that recognizes that there will continue to be extreme weather events going forward, and not just continue to put wood poles and string wires across the top. We need to think about it in a much more resilient way.
Yeah, the wood poles with wires across the top is very much what's happened in my neighborhood in Southern Maryland. Yeah.
And it's ugly.
Yeah, it's ugly and not necessarily reliable. So your department, as well as others in the administration, is very busy in spending funds under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law as well as the IRA. The EPA Inspector General last week warned about the potential for fraud stemming from the sheer size and complexity of the GHG reduction fund. That may not necessarily be mostly under DOE, but how is DOE ensuring that its funds are allocated appropriately as it accelerates getting money out the door ahead of the election?
We, like everybody, want to prevent any waste, fraud, and abuse. We recognize the size of these programs is significant. The Department of Energy was given 60 new programs and 88 overall, if you count the expanded programs under the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. We have been working hand in hand with our Inspector General to make sure we design these programs in a way that protect the taxpayer and reduce any waste, fraud, and abuse. We are feeling really good about how we have organized this, and this is true. We set up a whole new process with respect to making sure that we don't have investment from countries that may not have our interests at heart in these grant opportunities. So we've been very vigilant about it. I know other agencies have as well. The president has been really clear about making sure that we all have a close relationship with all of our IGs that are attached to each of the departments. So we're doing everything possible to make sure that the money goes where it needs to go in an efficient way.
So before I turn back to renewables, let me touch LNG. A fossil fuel that the U.S., as you well know, is the biggest global exporter of right now. You're 9 or 10 months into this analysis of the climate impact of LNG balanced against other U.S. interests. What have you learned so far?
Well, no news here. We are going to have a report that is released for comment around the end of the year. There will be an ability for folks to weigh in. The labs who are working on this are finalizing their analysis, and I am not going to announce in advance what they're going to show, but just know that we've got really the best minds working on this.
Have you at least been briefed on the findings as they've gone along, or is this going to be a surprise to you as well?
I'm generally aware of what's going on.
Okay. Just between us, I mean. DOE is doing some interesting work that I read up on last night on deploying renewable energy projects at sites that are part of a very different legacy, that are a legacy of the building of the atomic bomb. Can you tell me a little bit about the potential that is there for these locations to be turned from their previous reputation to be part of the new clean energy economy and a totally different association that most people might have with them?
Yeah, what a great story this is. We've got so many of these sites that are from the Manhattan Project era, and that our environmental management office has been working for decades to clean up and make sure there's no radioactive waste or et cetera. But once that happens, they're still part of the federal government's ownership. And so what we've done is to say we are launching a program called Clean Up to Clean Energy. So, for example, at Hanford in Washington, there is a big nuclear cleanup site there, the largest. They have thousands of acres of land that would otherwise be available. So we are making it a very large solar site. We just announced five particular sites. Developers were selected for renewable energy across all of these properties. And it's one way that we are looking to create Phoenix projects where Phoenix rises from the ashes of property or facilities that were underused or not used anymore.
It's a good labeling of that. Branding. It's very good branding. I think in terms of technologies that DOE is working on, that you see out there, and then maybe talked about a lot at different of the 9,000 events that are happening this week here in New York. What are you particularly excited about in the clean tech space?
Well, my favorite, as my team will know, I love enhanced geothermal. I really think the potential there is so vast, hundreds of gigawatts, the heat beneath our feet, which could be extracted in a safe way where there is, very little impact. And so I'm excited about seeing those happen more rapidly from a permitting point of view, but also pairing them with these hyperscalers and others who would like to see it. So that's number one. I'm also extremely bullish on long-duration energy storage as well. And some of you are familiar with some of the companies that DOE has funded, but one I love to point out, because it's a Phoenix project as well, which is Form Energy. Form Energy is developing a 10-hour plus iron-air battery for utilities. And 10 hours is a lot, right? It can solve a lot of problems. But what this company did was decide to locate this utility-scale battery company, their first manufacturing facility, on the site of a closed down steel mill in Weirton, West Virginia. And that steel mill had employed thousands of people over its time. When it closed, the sidewalks rolled up in Weirton, and they felt hopeless, like so many other places across the country who saw manufacturing jobs leave. When Form was looking at it, they decided, well, why don't we take advantage of the incentives and build our factory on the site of the steel mill, where an iron air battery on the site where they once forged steel, and the company now has started hiring, and they're operating. And they announced last week, as part of our Grid Resilience Innovation Program, that they have a contract with a utility in Maine to do the largest rollout of the utility scale batteries in the United States, of long duration energy storage in the United States. So I am super excited about anything that creates clean baseload power. And of course, long-duration energy storage creates quasi-baseload power out of renewables when paired with it.
Now, your department also is heavily involved with direct air capture, with carbon removal and CCS. How viable do you see these technologies as being right now, and bigger role them playing in the near future?
Well, I do think that the incentives are really important, because they wouldn't be viable from a commercial point of view, I think, without that. But that is an important part of what you do when you scale new technologies, right? I think if we're going to get to net zero by 2050, carbon management solutions are a part of the equation. They just are. And the better they get because of scaling and investment in technology, the better off we'll all be in terms of addressing CO2 emissions. So I think that, we've funded a number of startup companies in this space, and there are a number of players that are taking the technologies to scale right now. And they are also going to be paired with some of the hydrogen hubs that are looking at blue hydrogen. So we're excited over the next couple of years to see how this, how this rolls out. And I'm very bullish on it.
Trying to ask this in a very particular way. You seem to love your job. Probably, I'd rank you probably the most of the cabinet, really.
I do have the best job in the entire administration, if you can imagine. I mean, it's...
If given the chance to serve in this role or in government again, would you strongly consider it?
Of course, I'm open to whatever, but those are conversations I would have to have, and it would have to probably be with whoever wins the election.
Probably with them. Yeah, it would probably be with them.
And let's be clear, there's only one person that I'd serve with. Anyway.
Yep. Yeah. See, that's how I didn't phrase that question, because I didn't know if you'd go there. We like to close with one fun thing. I remember you from this program. People here may not be at the forefront of their minds, but what is one thing that you learned from your time as a TV host of the War Room at Current TV that has stuck with you and maybe helped you deal with people like me?
Okay, first of all, let me ask, did anyone even know or hear of a program called The War Room? Look at you are such a nerd.
I know. I am.
You would even know this.
I watch your advisory board meetings for like 4 hours. Yeah, my wife makes fun of me for it.
I am so sorry to hear that. Well, I don't know what to say about that other than at that point, Al Gore was my boss. And he, who had funded this effort to do a whole network, he was really, really funny as a guest. And so bringing your boss on to get him to tell jokes was really the best part of being a host for that brief moment that I was on Current TV.
Well, thank you very much. We had Gore here earlier. I think he illustrated some of that humor that he displayed when he was with you. And thank you for coming to Axios.
Oh my goodness, of course. Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody.